Welcome to Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast that brings Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Welcome, everyone, to the Sports Spectrum podcast. I am Jason Romano. Thanks so much for joining us here on the program today. Want to encourage you to check out our website, sportspectrum.com, where you can get daily devotionals every day at 6 a.m., as well as content, articles written on the intersection of sports and faith all day long, all week long. Check it out, sportspectrum.com. And also subscribe to our magazine. It's $18 for an entire year. And you get 4 quarterly issues of the Sports Spectrum magazine. The pillar of what this ministry was founded on is the Sports Spectrum magazine. It's been around for 30 plus years and still going strong. And we also have a couple bonus issues that we've been producing throughout the year that will be included in your $18 subscription. It's the best deal around. Check it out, sportspectrum.com, and subscribe today. Today's guest on the podcast is Mark Berokoff. Mark is the men's basketball coach and athletic director for Randall University. Where is Randall University, you might ask? Well, they're in Moore, Oklahoma. And listen, if you had never heard of Randall University, that's okay. Neither have I. And I didn't know about Randall until about 3-4 months ago. And so I started doing some research and looking at Mark and the team, the basketball team, and realizing it's a pretty good team. And maybe even better than pretty good, as in elite. See, Mark and Randall University have won 3 straight NCCAA National Championships in basketball. 3 straight national titles in Division II. 2016, 2017, and 2018. The NCCAA National Championship. You might also ask, what is the NCCAA? Well, that's a great question, because a year ago, I didn't know what that was either. But now I do, and I think it's really cool what it is. It's the National Christian College Athletic Association, NCCAA. National Christian College Athletic Association, and Randall has won 3 straight Division II national championships in the NCCAA. And we're going to talk to Mark Berokoff here on the podcast about that journey. Listen, I love having people on the podcast who are big names, the Tony Dungys of the world, the Adam Wainwrights of the world, the NBA players that we've had on. I love those guys. But I also love spanning the spectrum of sports and finding the little brother maybe that's doing some pretty great things for the Lord. And that's what's happening with Randall University, and specifically with Coach Mark Berokoff. So let's learn about Coach Mark Berokoff and the Randall University Saints basketball team here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. Take a listen. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's quite an honor.
It's good to talk to you, Coach. And I think there's a lot of people out there listening who may not know where Randall University is. Yours truly included, because until I did my research here and got tipped off to some of the great things you guys are doing at Randall, I did not know about Randall. So I think we'll start there. Tell us about where Randall University is, what level of play it is, because you've had a lot of success there. But I think a lot of people, it's almost like it's the best kept secret in college basketball, in my opinion, for all the success that you guys have had. Tell us about Randall.
Well, Randall is in Moore, Oklahoma, which is right down the highway from Oklahoma City, and we are right next to the University of Oklahoma in Norman. So we kind of sit in the middle between there. Our school used to be called 4 years ago Hillsdale Free Will Baptist College, and we changed our name to Randall University. Okay. And our school's been around for, I think we're celebrating our 65-year anniversary coming up here in a couple weeks. So we've been around for a long time, and just recently we have changed our name to Randall University. So sometimes people get confused or forget that Hillsdale was around. So we sit in a great area in Oklahoma, and I think we're probably more well known for anything of being in Tornado Alley, which is great for a guy that was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. So I'm learning all about the wonderful weather of Oklahoma.
Do you remember the first storm that you had to kind of deal with and realize that word tornado or even tornado warning was a real thing, just being a California kid?
Yeah, it was, I've been married 23 years with my wife, Stacy, and it was staying at my mother-in-law's house, and the wind and the thunder, I had never heard thunder and lightning hit like that, because you just don't get that in Southern California. And I thought the world was coming to an end. And I've never heard lightning and thunder like that loud before, and it was in a city, and it was terrifying to me. But I've slowly gotten used to it.
Yeah, I it's thinking of my wife, who, if I ever had to move to Oklahoma, or we had to ever move to Oklahoma, I'm not sure she would go, just because of that fear of being in Tornado Alley. Just the idea of calling it Tornado Alley is scary. Mark, let me ask you about the competition level. And you're a three straight now. You've won three straight NCCAA national championships as the basketball coach with Randall. But a lot of people, I don't think, know what NCCAA is. We know what NCAA is, obviously March Madness and sort of the mainstream college basketball. But tell us about, I mean, if you win three straight anything from a championship level, that's pretty awesome. And yet a lot of people may not know what NCCAA is.
Yeah, so the NCCAA, my best comparison would be, we have two divisions, Division One and Division Two. Division One are allowed to give scholarships. Division Two, which I am at, we are not allowed to give athletic scholarships. But the best comparison I could make, the very good teams at the NCCAA level, and especially D2, are very, very comparable to NAIA basketball.
Okay.
A lot of the teams at our level play NAIA teams and are very successful against them. The biggest thing would be, a lot of people don't like you said, the NCCAA is not maybe more commonly known, but what you'll find at our level is there are a lot of good basketball players that easily could be playing at the NCAA level and somehow got missed out on or didn't get recruited. And you find that a lot of the time. I've done this now 7 years, and I came from Division I basketball. And it is amazing to me to see how many good basketball players there actually are. And a lot of these teams do a great job recruiting and finding these talent. And you find these under the radar or under recruited kids that you're looking at and you're going, how did somebody miss on this kid? And that's what you find a lot at the NCCAA level.
The NCCAA, for those listening, stands for National Christian College Athletic Association, which obviously is right up our alley as a faith and sports podcast, and for what we stand for with our faith in Christ. And the NCCAA, I wonder for you, Coach, what was the biggest challenge? Maybe it's probably not being able to offer scholarships, but the biggest step, I guess, from a Division I program where you were previously to come into a place like Randall and, as their athletic director and coach, because you're wearing two hats here, have to kind of navigate this world where you can't offer scholarships and you have to, kind of work through recruiting without that enticing thing of being able to offer a full ride.
Yeah, it has made me an unbelievable recruiter.
Yeah.
When you're not, when you don't have athletic scholarships, you have to really sell your university and your program in a different way. And it's easy just to throw out a scholarship. A lot of kids will just take a scholarship regardless of the school.
Right.
But convincing a young man to come and pay for college and play basketball, it's not an easy thing to do. In my program, we've been very lucky. We've had some kids turn down scholarship offers to come play for us. But it's an awesome way to sell your university, sell the opportunity to learn more about our Lord and Savior. And that's why I love it. I love the challenge. I love the kids that we bring to our school. And some of our kids haven't been around Christianity or haven't gone to church. And I see no better way than to bring them on a Christian college campus and to teach them about Christ. And that's where I get my most satisfaction from.
Mark Berokoff is our guest here on the Sports Spectrum podcast from Randall University. You work at a Christian university, and obviously you are a Christian. So let's learn about your journey to Christ and when it was that you made him the Lord of your life.
Yeah, mine. When I was a young kid in Whittier, California, Southern California, my mom was super heavily involved in, I don't even know if it exists anymore, but the Good News Club.
Okay.
And it went on at in neighborhoods, and it went on at somebody's house, and our next door neighbor had the Good News Club. And I'll never forget, it was at one of my friend's house, and they were telling Bible stories. And, obviously I grew up in the church and I was a young kid, but my mom looked at me and she goes, are you ready to become a Christian? And, I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. This sounds really cool.
Right.
And, that's when I became a born again Christian, was when I was a young kid. But, the journey is always ongoing and learning more. And, I have learned, especially being at a Christian university, just met some amazing Christian people that have really helped my walk with Christ, and being involved with a Bible study on campus with some administrators. It's just been awesome, and it's not been an easy journey. It never is. There's been a lot of up and downs, and but I will never forget, though, when I became a Christian and when I asked the Lord into my life, and the Good News Bible Club in Whittier, and I can see the house to this day, and I can remember exactly walking, from the one house to the next, and my mom talking to me about that, and it's been awesome. I mean, I love it. I love my walk with the Lord, and He's awesome. So,
And working at a Christian university where faith is present everywhere, I have to imagine there's some challenges to that, and people might think that's a weird way to even say it, or questioning. But I think, and I live this a little bit too, working in a sports ministry, of being, faith is present everywhere. And in some ways, I have to remind myself, this is not just the work that you're doing; it's still about that relationship with the Lord. How do you keep that from going stale, I guess, in the way that you teach kids, the way that you lead your team, and even in your own walk?
yeah, that easily could happen because you can just forget that you're at a Christian university because you're around it so much. Our school does a great job with our professors, do a great job of keeping in contact with all of our student athletes. And, we as a coach, or as the athletic director, I try to live my life as they see, as a Christian would. And, but no, being the stale part is, yes, that can happen. And that's why, I mean, I've been so excited to be in a Bible study on campus. So it kind of re-energizes you a little bit in terms of what you're doing, because it's easy to forget or get wrapped up in your season that you're in, and not talk to the guys about Christianity or Bible because they're in Bible classes and such. But our university is awesome, and they really make sure that everyone is understanding that we are there because we're a Christian university. So
I remember talking to Tony Dungy on this podcast a couple months ago about the moment when they won the Super Bowl, and he stood up there on that podium with the Super Bowl trophy, and he said, "We did it the Lord's way." And I asked him what that meant to him, and the Lord's way to him was following the Lord's principles, not shouting, not screaming, not using profanity, all these different things, and yet still be successful as a coach, because there were people that told him he couldn't if he had those faith values. How do you stay competitive, stay tough, stay on your kids to try and motivate them, but still have those sort of quote unquote Christian values, doing it the Lord's way?
yeah, that's great. First off, to be even mentioned on a podcast with Tony Dungy, that's pretty cool. Okay, so
It's not bad, right?
right, not bad at all. I've really hit the jackpot. No, that is a huge challenge, because if you're coaching or playing, you want to play to win, and sometimes it is hard to look at the bigger picture. I'll tell you one thing that helps me is, on most games, my daughter sits on the bench with me, and she's 17 now, and this might be, she's going to go to college next year. So, but she always taps me on the leg. She keeps the fouls during the game, and sometimes she has the whiteboard, and she always says, "Dad, you don't need to argue with the ref. You don't need to do this." And it's like, it's a good reminder for me. I've gotten technicals with her sitting there, and she just looks at me and she goes, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, it needed to be done." And she goes, "But really?"
Yeah.
And she's a very quick reminder for what our mission is. And you don't have to be yelling and screaming and using foul language to win. Especially with the kids today and the athletes today, they are wired a different way, and yelling and screaming doesn't work nowadays. And it's an easy reminder for me. And our program's built on family and love. And I tell our recruits all the time, when I'm recruiting you, I will not change who I am when you get on campus in December and we're playing. I am who I am. And I try to show our guys this is how it's going to be. This is how I live my life, and I want you to do the same, or I want you to strive to. And a big saying that I have in our program, especially we've won here of the last few years, but I tell our guys, it's not about the banners. It's going to be what's going to happen to us in 10 years is going to really define what our success is. In 10 years is what's going to really, if we're going to be great or not the banners. In 10 years, how you're going to be in your marriage, how you're going to be with your wife or your kids. That's what my ultimate goal is. And that's something when I'm coaching, I try to live that and think that all the time. I'm really working for these guys for 10 years from now. It's not about the banners and winning. It's from 10 years. If they're striving and doing what they're supposed to be doing 10 years from now, then we've really won. So that's my big reminder.
That's really good. And you're only in your 7th season, so you can look in 3 years. You can start to look at that first team and see how they're doing. Right?
Yeah. Remind me. I'm old. Yeah. Okay. I got it.
I think I'm older than you, but that's okay. Now, Coach, let me ask you this. You coach college kids, young kids. What do you see is the biggest challenge facing these young people? You even have a 17-year-old daughter. I have a 14-year-old daughter, so we're close to being in the same boat in that realm. What do you see as the biggest challenge for these young people, especially even Christian young people, as they aspire to whatever they want to aspire to, in your case, playing basketball?
Boy, I'll tell you, it has changed. I mean, I've coached now for 20 plus years at all levels. And now these kids are being hit with more things going on in the world and more ideas. And it's amazing. The things that they have access to, the things that are being thrown at them from A to Z, from the government to sports to what's right or what's wrong. They are just being hit with so much stuff. And these kids, regardless of where they're coming from, good family, bad family, no father, a great father, great mom, they need love. They need somebody that is going to care for them and not, it's easy for schools or programs or whatever sport to say, yeah, we're a family, but to really treat them like it is a family. And a lot of these kids just need love, regardless of where they're coming from. And I'm seeing it more and more and more. We're living in a world where it's so easy to go one way or the other because it's so easily accessed through social media or Instagram or Snapchat. They live in that world and they're on their phones constantly. And I think, like you asked, what's the biggest challenge? It's to get them off of their phones and to really look up and see what's going on in the world.
Yeah. How do we do that? How do we do that? Because I even just speaking from being a dad, how do we do that? I mean, I literally have to take my phone away from my daughter and say, go do something else and hold the phone until she's done something else and then come back to it. It's so difficult.
It's incredibly difficult. And it starts with us. I mean, when we're recruiting, kids don't want to talk on the phone. They want to text. And it's like, my wife has to say to me all the time, really? Yeah. Is this what we're doing tonight? Yeah. And it's a great reminder of, you know what, let's put the phone down. And it's the same thing with my daughter. She's on her phone constantly and she's looking at whatever's going on. And you're right. You got to put the phone down, but that's what's facing our kids. They're on their phones. They're not looking up and seeing what's going on in the world. And they're not making decisions based on what they really feel. They're basing decisions on what they're reading on Twitter. Yeah. And so what we try to do is I try to give our guys different perspectives. And here's what's going on. What do you think about this? And challenging them in conversations and not looking at their phone. Tell me what you think. Don't tell me what Twitter's telling you. And so that I think that's what the biggest challenge is for me, at least. But it's a battle every day, and I'm going to continue to fight it.
That's good. Yeah, I think as parents, as coaches, as leaders, as dads, we all need to continue to fight this battle and not let the world win in that sense, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Coach Mark Berokoff is our guest here. A couple more questions with him from you. Randall University here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. I want to talk about success and failure for a minute because you've had a lot of success. When you win 3 straight Division II NCCAA National Championships, that's in the eyes, especially in the eyes of the world, that's success. You have banners going up in the gym and you're cutting down the nets and you're champions. And I know we were talking before this interview, you had some losses and they were 2 really good teams, but you were starting off slow. And as we speak, you've won 10 in a row, 10 games in a row. So there's success and then there's obstacles and failure coming your way. How do you lead your team through the successes and through the failures in basketball? How do you sort of balance that act?
Yeah, it's kids now, like, and we've been talking earlier about it, kids are different now. Winning and losing is not the same as it was 10 or 15 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes you think these teams or kids, when they lose, it's like, all right, where are we eating tonight? It's like, didn't you realize we just lost?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, the challenge has been, and it will always be, for at least for my program, we play an extremely tough schedule, and we don't win very much in the first semester. And sometimes we take losses because we haven't worked on certain things, and we have preached to our kids that we play these games to make us better, to make us tougher, to make us see things that there'll never be a surprise to us if we get a chance to go to the national tournament. There's nothing somebody can throw at us that we haven't seen earlier on in the first semester.
Mm.
So we try to play the toughest schedule possible. Last year, we played Baylor on national TV on Fox Sports and played them very, very tough. We were only down 8 with 8 minutes to go, and that was when Baylor was, I want to say, in the top 20 at the time.
Yeah.
But I want to. There's a couple too. Also, what way we do it, I want to give our kids experiences that they might not otherwise get playing in cool arenas or playing against bigger teams. And we also use it as a challenge. Hey, these guys didn't recruit you. Let's go out and prove that they should have recruited you. But it is a tough deal now with failure. Success is, it's easy when you win and kids buy in. It's really getting them to buy in. And I love the challenge of when you're going through a lot of losses, will they continue to buy in and believe in what you're doing? That's when you find out if you've really got a team that is built to last. If you could deal with the adversity and get them to continue to buy in during that adversity. And for the last 5 years in our program, we've had kids that have bought in regardless of what's going on. And it takes a vision from the coach, but it also takes the players believing in that vision and buying in. So we've been very fortunate with that.
Coach, I'm big about lessons here on this podcast and what you've learned in your journey and your walk. But let's twist it a little bit from the lesson maybe God has taught you, which is a common question that I ask at the end of every interview. But instead, let's pretend we're talking to the high school coach, to the volunteer coach. I volunteer softball, coaching softball for my daughter. Let's talk to those coaches who are struggling right now, who are men of faith, even women of faith that are in their walk. And what is the greatest lesson that you could share with those? If you're talking to a bunch of coaches in a room and they said, what's been the biggest key for you in your coaching walk that has helped you in your journey, what would you say?
Yeah, I've been there. Number one, there are a lot of coaches that try to preach, do this, do that, but have never actually really been through that. I'll tell you, I started out in junior high coaching, coached a sophomore team in high school, coached at a really small school, high school in California. I've been a volunteer at the Division I level. We were very close to being on food stamps and welfare. We didn't have any money. I have driven all over the country with jobs and taken $5,000 at a JUCO to be there for a year and lived in the dorms with my wife and daughter and 2 dogs. The biggest lesson I can say is if you believe in what you want to do, don't ever give up on it. Continue to push, continue to fight, continue to network, and believe that no matter what, the Lord has a purpose for you and what you're trying to do. The thing that I always remembered was that the Lord already knows what's going to happen to me. He already knows what my next job is going to be or where we're going to end up.
That's right.
And at the time, it's a tough thing to learn or a tough lesson, but I always just trusted that this tough situation is going to make me better for the next job. And just continue to believe in your vision or the belief that you have. And I just always said to him, don't give up. Just don't give up. Don't give up, and continue to work as hard as you can and learn as much as you can. And always a big thing I talk to my coaches, take notes.
Yeah.
Take notes of this is how I want to do it in my program, or this is how I wouldn't do it in my program. And so you're ready for that interview, or you're ready for the next situation to come. But biggest lesson, don't give up on the dream that you have, because it's easy nowadays for people to say, oh, just go do something else.
Yeah.
And people told me that, oh, this is pointless. You're moving your family all over the country. And I never stopped believing, because I wanted to make a better life for my family. And I guess that would be the biggest lesson I could tell coaches out there. I've been there. I've been a volunteer coach before. So I know what it's like. I know the feeling. So just keep believing in what you're doing.
He is Mark Berokoff, Randall University men's basketball coach, also their athletic director. And who knows, maybe by the time this podcast airs or right after it might be 4 straight NCCAA national championships. But at the very least, we got 3 straight, and we're happy to have Mark here and learn a little bit more about his journey on the podcast. Coach, thank you. Really appreciate you joining us. And let's get you back on again sometime. Maybe I'll shake your hand in person at some point down the road and get to meet you in person. So thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's quite an honor, and I love the mission you guys are doing.
That was really great. Many thanks to Coach Berokoff, Mark Berokoff from Randall University, for joining us here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. 3 straight NCCAA national championships in men's basketball. And as we release this podcast, March 6th, 2019, Randall is getting ready to do battle for a 4th straight NCCAA national championship, and they're in a good place. They're the number 1 seed, and by the time this weekend comes, March 9th, March 10th, they may once again be a national champion. They're looking to go 4 straight years winning the NCCAA national championship. So many thanks to Coach Berokoff. You can give him a follow on Twitter at RandallMBB, RandallMBB. Give Coach a follow on Twitter and let him know you heard this episode of the Sports Spectrum podcast. Many thanks to Coach, and many thanks to you for listening. You can always follow us on Twitter as well at sports_spectrum. We're on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. You can find us at all of those places. Hit the follow button, subscribe, tag us on any posts, take a screenshot of this podcast. Let us know that you've been listening to the Sports Spectrum podcast. Also, you can email me directly, jason@sportspectrum.com. Let me know if you have any guest ideas. I mean, this interview with Coach Mark Berokoff came because somebody emailed me and told me you should have Coach Berokoff on the podcast. We don't just want to have the huge name athlete, and we love talking to the huge name athlete who follows Jesus, but we want to hear all these different type of stories that are happening on the intersection of sports and faith. When you win 3 straight NCCAA national championships, man, we got to talk to you and find out your story. So if you have any ideas, email me, jason@sportspectrum.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time with a brand new episode of the Sports Spectrum podcast. Have a great rest of your day.